Welcome to the second part of the 2030 Agenda and the New World Order. In the first part, we were analysing texts of an organisation called Lucis Trust that belongs to the United Nations and participates in the General Assembly, and they belong to the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. We saw how this secret society, along with the Theosophical Society and other religions and religious leaders, were working for the coming of Satan as if he were Christ for the year 2030. Now here we're going to show more proof, much more visual proof. So let's begin. We finished the last conference with this paragraph of the last page, the last paragraph of the book, The Destiny of the Nations by Alice Bailey, which was the founder of Lucis Trust, written in 1949. And she wrote precisely this: Christ and the coming New Age. We have also a picture of the future of humanity when all nations are united in complete understanding, and the diversity of languages, symbolic of differing traditions, cultures, civilizations and points of view, will provide no barrier to right human relations. At the center of each of these pictures is to be found the Christ. As we explained in the last conference, the Christ was basically, for them, was Lucifer, that fallen angel, that for them was the Messiah that was to come to unite all religions and nations into one new world order. Thus the expressed aims, which would be truly the goals and efforts of the United Nations, will be eventually brought to fruition, and a new Church of God gathered out of all religions and spiritual groups will unitedly bring to an end the great heresy of separateness. Love, unity, and the risen Christ will be present, and he will demonstrate to us the perfect life. So who was this Christ for them? Who was their God? Their God was Satan himself, as we will see. Holy Satan, in the book The Secret Doctrine of Elena P. Blavatsky. It is Satan who is the God of our planet and the only God, and this without any metaphorical allusion to its wickedness and depravity. So as you can see, for them it is not wicked at all, this being. For them it is pure love and light and well-being. Well, we can imagine, knowing, most of us know the beginning of the story of the Bible, how this serpent, the ancient dragon, was the one that deceived humanity and, well, began sin in this world. And that is how this world is today, full of, well, basically madness, death, sorrow, and so many other things that we wish did not exist. Now, the New Age, which was something that we were seeing that it was related with all of this new era of humanity that they are waiting for, is also a movement that has been generated in the last few decades, I would say, that began in the West, in the United States, and also in Europe, which basically the Theosophical Society, what they did was bring all types of masters of different religions and philosophies, to bring them to the West, to the United States and Europe, and begin to promote all of these different spiritual practices that are so common today in our world, and that most of us have even practiced, and they are within our daily life. Well, truly the Theosophical Society, which was related with Freemasonry, secret societies, this was their work to begin to introduce these practices so that people would be able to meditate, practice Reiki, yoga, and so many other things, to be able to connect with these solar angels. So is the New Age movement a product of the Luciferian Freemasonry? Well, as we can see here in this magazine of the New Age, the story of a shaman's apprentice. Healing secrets, Tibetan healing secrets, again, New Age. And we'll go back in time to see where this comes from. New Age, work and money, free yourself from money anxieties. All these things that have to do with well-being and inner inspiration. New Age, clear your clutter, free your energy. What's better than instant gratification? Michael Douglas, also in this New Age, as we saw in the first conference, how celebrities were also involved in this movement. Susan Sarandon in the New Age magazine as well. And as we go back in time, also the storytelling renaissance. Where does it come from? Well, from a New Age magazine involving Elena Blavatsky, and also a Freemason magazine called The New Age. And as you can see here at the bottom, the Supreme Council of 33rd Degree and this triangle symbol with liberty, equality, and fraternity. So as you can see, the New Age movement was really promoted by what is the Theosophical Society, Lucis Trust, Freemasonry, and so many secret societies, bringing all these Oriental movements into the West so that they could be introduced in population, and people that did not practice these things before could start doing them and believe in all sorts of weird things, that we have mental powers, that we can change things with the power of our mind, etc., etc. So as we can see here in the symbol of Lucis Trust, it's this triangle inside of a circle. And this is a symbol that we can see quite commonly. We can see it here in this book, for example, for the third eye awakening, as we read in the first conference, of how they wanted us to open this third eye so that we could receive this information from this spiritual hierarchy, which are basically the solar angels, the fallen angels of the Bible, the demons, led by Satan himself. You can see it's also in these books, so that it's not something that I'm making up from different authors. You can see third eye awakening also related to this symbol. Now let's see what this webpage tells us about the third eye and how to activate and use the pineal gland to gain fullness and awareness. If you want to improve your physical health and spiritual connection, they say, learn to open the spiritual portal that is activated with the pineal gland, also called third eye. The third eye, or spiritual button, is the gateway that connects to other dimensions, that helps to enhance emotions, self-knowledge, and transformation of the spirit, self, and soul. So they say it's a spiritual button that you can activate by doing certain practices. As you know, for example, mindfulness is used, meditation, yoga, and so many other things are used to be able to open this spiritual button to be able to activate your pineal gland, which is in the center of our brain. It says, we all possess a pineal gland which is located in our brain. There is a direct relationship between the third eye and the pineal gland, which is known as the seat of the soul and is the portal between the body and the soul. So if it is a portal, it is an entrance. If it is an entrance, it's something that we can open for information to come inside. But where does that information come from? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it something that will benefit us? Or will it go against our personal interests? Well, let's carry on seeing what they say. How to activate the third eye or pineal gland. Activating the third eye involves techniques that stimulate the pineal gland to open to higher levels of perception and awareness. Practices such as meditation focused on the third eye, visualizations, specific yoga, and breathing techniques can help. Curiously, these are the techniques that the Lucis Trust organization wanted us to practice, remember? They wanted us to do meditation, and they promoted meditation throughout the United Nations. Even the United Nations had their own meditation room for invocation and prayer, so that they could also open their third eye. But to what do they open their third eye? In addition, maintaining a positive emotional state and high vibrations through the practice of love and gratitude also contributes to this process. Third eye activation can take time and patience, but it can open doors to deeper insight and greater spiritual connection. So this third eye opening, the pineal gland, which is related with this triangle, to what are we opening this door? Because obviously not everything can be bad and not everything can be good. So where are we opening our mind, our pineal gland, our third eye to? As you can see here in this image, the pineal gland is in the center of our brain. And here is a visual image of what would be a real brain, and it has, curiously, the same shape as the Eye of Horus. Now, it's interesting, this concept, because the Eye of Horus was used by Egyptians, and this was many thousand years ago. So did they know that there was a pineal gland and that it had something to do with the connection to things that we cannot touch or feel, which could be maybe other kind of dimensions or spiritual realities? Well, they already knew what this was about. And we can see it by this symbol. Keep in mind the symbol because we will mention it later. Curious that the Bible also talks about the third eye. I don't know if you knew this, but it says here in Luke chapter 11, 34 and 35, the light of the body is the eye. Therefore, when thine eye is single, thy whole body also is full of light. But when thine eye is evil, thy body also is full of darkness. Take heed therefore that the light which is in thee be not darkness. So the Bible here in this verse gives us a warning, saying that yes, your eye can be a door for light to come in, but be aware, be careful that maybe the light you think is coming inside is not light, but it is darkness. So how do we make the distinction between what is light and what is darkness? Because apparently what they are promoting in the United Nations, the SDGs and Lucis Trust, every religion is valid, every belief counts, and God, Lucifer in this case, for them, it doesn't matter. He loves us all, no matter what we believe. So where is truth in that? Everything is mixed up. You can't define then truth from a lie. So how do we separate white from black? How do we separate what is good from what is wrong? Here we have Albert Pike, a 33-degree Freemason, just like the husband of Alice Bailey, who founded Lucis Trust. And here you have him with the illuminated triangle on his chest, symbolizing the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. And he wrote this book, which is practically the Bible of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, called Morals and Dogma. And you see it on this symbol, which is the two-headed eagle, which basically represents the 32 and 33 degree Freemason. And once again, you have that illuminated triangle at the top, which also you may have seen this symbol with an eye in the center, with this triangle, and with an eye in the center all illuminated. You can see this in many places. We'll see a bit about it further on. And at the bottom, it has two phrases. What does this say? Ordo ab chao, which means order from chaos or order through chaos. And Deus meunque jus, which is God and my right. So order through chaos, that means to create chaos and then create the order through the chaos that I have already created, so that I can control the future order, the new world order. And it says God and my right. What God is this? Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual or selfish souls? Doubt it not, for traditions are full of divine revelations and inspirations, and inspiration is not of one age nor of one creed. So what is Albert Pike telling us here? That all traditions, all religions are inspired by this divine revelation. And for him, what is divine is Lucifer. So all religions and all traditions, as we saw that are all together working in this agenda, belong to or have the same origin in the inspirations from these solar angels, which for them are divine and coming directly from something that is good for all of us. Now, Albert Pike was saying that all religions can belong to this divine inspiration. What does the Pope say? The world is being destroyed. Stop the wars while there is still time. Well, that's quite hypocrite, isn't it? Since it is the papacy basically that's organizing and creating all the wars that there are on the planet. But anyway, creating fraternal bonds. It says we need to keep meeting, to weave bonds of fraternity, and to allow ourselves to be guided by the divine inspiration present in every faith, in order to join in imagining peace among all peoples. So once again, we have both Albert Pike, 33-degree Freemason, and Pope Francis, both saying that divine inspiration is in all religions and all faiths, and they all can belong together indifferently of what they believe. So is that true? I mean, that's impossible. Once you mix a bit of truth with a bit of a lie, then it's not truth anymore. And if you get a lie and mix a bit of a truth in it, then it's still not a truth, is it? Truth has to be complete. It can't have a mix with a lie. It can't have a mix with error or mistake. Here we see in the Freemasonry Encyclopedia how they recommend Madame Blavatsky as a recommended lecture. So they are both basically in the same thing. Obviously, the Theosophical Society was also created by many Freemasons, just like Annie Besant, for example. Annie Besant was also a 33-degree Mason that went to India, for example, and she got Krishnamurti, for example, that is a person quite well known between the New Age area, and basically raised him as a messiah, as what they call the Maitreya. They founded him, they gave him money, they made him someone famous, brought him to the United States and Europe, and he started preaching all over. And now today, well, there are so many people that have read Krishnamurti and even believe in what he said. Well, he was nobody. And Ali Besant basically brought him from India and raised him as a famous, illuminated person in this world, who practiced many of the things that we are going to show here. For example, Kundalini, awakening the third eye. So Kundalini yoga is also used to awaken the third eye and the rest of the chakras, as they say. What does the Theosophical Society say? That the Kundalini, through esoteric yogic practices, this force can rise powerfully in a serpentine path. Who was the snake of the Garden of Eden? It was Satan, wasn't it? Wasn't Satan the snake, the winged snake that was on beside the tree of good and evil, tempting Eve to eat of the fruit? Well, it's curious that it's the same symbolism to represent Kundalini in this case, right? It says, also, it is represented in the caduceus or staff of Hermes that serves as a symbol of healing in the medical profession. As you can see here, the Greek caduceus is also a symbol of the Kundalini, these two snakes circling up this staff. We'll see it in a bit, what this also can represent. According to Blavatsky, the third eye corresponds with the pineal gland in the brain, so the latter is affected by the awakening of Kundalini. So we can see that this scientific society does believe that the pineal gland is connected to something. It's not that it's useless, that it is used to connect with some, let's say, spiritual spheres. And also the occult, the secret societies, do believe also that it has to do with the third eye. So they are both in the same way. Both science, the Bible, and also secret societies are saying that there is a relation between the pineal gland and the third eye. But where do we see the caduceus symbol? It's curious to see it here in the symbol of the Baphomet, which is a representation basically of Satan, because we know that Satan does not look like this. Satan is an amazingly splendorous angel that is practically the most beautiful thing that the world will ever see before Christ. Well, it's curious to see also where the symbol is, where it is located, because it's locating at his waist, basically, so you can know what it represents. And do the sexual, for example, activities also have to do with the third eye and the pineal gland? Well, science is proving that it does, actually, that sexual relationships also have to do with the pineal gland. It is activated by that. So, remembering the verse that we read, be careful that the light comes in is not darkness. Be careful that maybe some practices that we are doing are not correct. Maybe they can open certain doors to things that we do not want in our lives. So where else can we see this triangle inside the circle, this illuminated triangle? It's on the dollar bill. We've already done one of these conferences referring to the dollar bill, explaining more about the symbology, because the dollar bill is full of occult and Freemasonry symbology. But we're not going to deal with it right now. We're going to go directly to what is the triangle. It has Roman numbers at the bottom of it, of this pyramid, and it was the date of creation of the Illuminati order founded by the Jesuits in Bavaria. So the Jesuits, which is a military Catholic order that still exists today. Actually, Pope Francis, the actual Pope, he belongs to the Jesuit order. It's a military order of the Catholic Church. Well, the year 1776 was also the date of declaration of the independence of the United States. So yes, secret societies and Freemasonry were inside at the moment of the creation of the United States. I'm not saying that they were all creating the United States. They were all Freemasons and they were all in occultism. We know that George Washington was a Freemason, but there were good principles and truly good beliefs of the creation of the United States, which were basically your freedom of conscience. The thing is that later on, it started to get corrupted by precisely the infiltration of the Jesuits in the United States. Remember the Eye of Horus that we mentioned, which was the shape that the pineal gland did in our brain? Well, here we have it again. This symbol here is the symbol of the all-seeing eye. In Egypt, called the Eye of Horus. The Illuminati called it their shimmering delta. It's from Egyptian mysticism, But we will see in future conferences how it is much even before Egypt. It will go even before, remember, maybe something that has to do with the flood? Lots of rain around the earth and this fantasy, apparently, story of Noah's Ark. Well, there is proof about this, and we will show how truly what the symbolism is comes from even before that event. But anyway, we'll leave that for another day. It represents worship to sun god. Well, curious how the solar angels represent the sun, and Lucifer was the light bearer, which is basically representing Baal or any of the Old Testament gods that were they were worshipping the sun, basically, or the god Ra, for example, of the Egyptians. Symbol of Lucifer, the light bearer, shining triangle, mental enlightenment. Well, it's curious, it's like the opening of the third eye, and Greek letter delta, transition. So transition to what? What would this be a transition to? Well, in the $1 bill, it tells us transition towards the Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is the new secular order of the centuries of the ages, or New World Order. So the Illuminati movement, the Luciferian movement, is in the $1 bill is telling us here through symbolism that it is a transition to the New World Order, and the moment when that triangle will finally be united to the rest of the pyramid, because now it's separated. But there will be a moment when it will come down, land on the pyramid, and Satan will appear himself here as if he were Christ, as the Messiah of this world. You can see here the symbol of Freemasonry. It fits quite well on the image. Now you can say, well, you just put it there because you think it fits, but anything could fit there, or it doesn't make any sense. Oh, does it really? Well, let's take a look. This would be the square on the compass of Freemasonry, right? What does it point out? M-A-S-O-N, Mason. So yes, Freemasonry was at the creation of the United States, and of course it's in the dollar bill everywhere written over it. Now if we close these two symbols, it makes a six-pointed star, which some may know as if it were the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon, but David never wore this symbol, nor Solomon either, because it represents something else. In the Bible, it spoke about this star. It says, "Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them." So this star represents the star of a god, Remphan. Now, what did the people of the Old Testament in the Bible do for their god Remphan? Well, they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Molech. What was pass through the fire? This is human sacrifices. This was to bring their firstborn, take them to a fire, and basically burn them for their gods in sacrifice. So the star that was of one of these gods which they did human sacrifices is on the dollar bill, and in many other places, practically in all religions over this world, as we will continue to see in the conferences. How is this? And it continues, "Which I commanded them not, neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin." So God never commanded his people to do these kind of sacrifices or to do these kind of worships. But these worships are, I could say, even still being done today. Here's a representation of this god Molech, where they took their firstborn. And here's a statue also representing this god. Obviously, we know that this god was a representation of Satan, and Satan does not look like this at all. You can see here the six-pointed star, the square on the compass in the center of his chest, with an eye in the center. "There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire." That's what the Bible says. Obviously, do not do these human sacrifices. They are being done to Satan, to the devil. But it relates them with other practices. Pass their children through fire with divination. It says, "To not useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. So God warns his people and warns us today to not do these kind of practices because they are related precisely with the demons. If you take these as examples, you can relate them with different spiritual practices that are done today all over the world to open this third eye, basically, to the demons. And God warns us through his word to not do these things to protect us, because what he wants to enter in our third eye is only light and the truth. How many of these practices maybe have we not done? I personally have, before I knew the truth. Reiki, yoga, Ouija, tarot, mantras. Also using objects as if they had spiritual powers, like a crucifix. Or lighting candles to dead people, for example, or to have communication with Catholic saints. Also using gems and crystals as if they were powers. Also sound bathing, or using gongs, using these Tibetan bowls also. Shamanic experiences as well, using specific medicines or even mushrooms that make you supposedly connect with the spiritual world. And also using idols, using figures and statues to represent something to worship, when the Bible explicitly says to not create or make any kind of statue or image or idol and to not bow down to them. How is it possible that if the Bible says this in the second commandment, that the world is full of Catholic churches which are full of idols and virgins and Christ and crucifix? Not only this, also rosaries, blessed water. How is this possible when the Bible is telling you that you should not do these things? That these things do not have power? But anyway, we mentioned how this illuminated triangle was in more places. Well, you can see it here in the Vatican, also here in Cordoba in Argentina. And this is the facade of a Jesuit temple. You can see here the six-pointed star, the Star of Remphan. Within the center, it has this sun. And in the center of the sun, IHS, which is the symbol of the Jesuit order. So how is it that Catholic military orders are also into this sun worship? You can see it at the top of a Masonic temple and also on a Masonic shield. So the all-seeing eye is everywhere, basically. Now, seeing that the union between the United States, the secret societies, and the Vatican is evident, as we proved in the first conference, let us remember their main objective: the preparation for the reappearance of the Christ. Again, let's go back to Lucis Trust. He, Satan, will come unfailingly when a measure of peace has been restored, when the principle of sharing is at least in process of controlling economic affairs, and when churches and political groups have begun to clean house. Then he can and will come. So, when apparently peace starts to get to this world, when apparently religions start to join together, and when apparently they are trying to solve the problems of this world through the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, then it will be the terrain prepared for the Christ to come, as we saw in the past conference. Call for religious leaders for peace and world consolidation at their meeting in Astana. This was in Kazakhstan. I believe it was a year or two ago when they joined together here at this place. And who is in the center? Who is the one that is basically in the dominance of this ecumenical movement and interfaith? And where did they get together? Here at the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation. Do you recognize an image here? We just saw it on the $1 bill. What's at the top? It's the illuminated triangle. That's Satan himself at the top of the pyramid, at the top of the New World Order, with all the religious leaders inside that pyramid. Do you want to see where they got together? They sat around this table, an eye. So you have all the religious leaders of this world, of all the different denominations, sitting around an eye inside a triangle. I mean, I don't think it can be shown any clearer. This is the building where they were together, the Palace of Peace, they say. And when I was preparing the conference, it reminded me of the Pyramid of the Sun, Teotihuacan in Mexico, that it had basically a similar shape. What did they do at these pyramids? The Aztecs, the Incas in Mexico also, what did they do at the top of these pyramids? Human sacrifices. Exactly the same as what the Bible said. And where is this? This is a sky view of Kazakhstan. And you can see here at the beginning the presidential palace, and at the other side is the pyramid of the Palace of Peace, basically. They are opposites one to the other. And at the center, there is this symbol, a giant phoenix. And what does a phoenix represent? It's this bird in flames that represents eternal life, immortality, resurrection, etc., etc. It's basically an occult symbol of Lucifer. So what is Lucifer doing there? Again, well, after seeing the pyramid, I think this won't seem strange to us. And also, what is there in this line? So you've got the presidential palace, you've got the phoenix pointing to the pyramid, then you've got the peace palace, and behind that, this over here. Now, what is this? This huge pillar. Here it has a symbol of a wheel. As you can see, how many radius does it have? 8 radius. This we've been talking about a lot in the conference, and we will mention it more, what this symbolizes. But basically, when it has 8 radiuses, or a star that is 8 pointed, it represents sun worship and other things that we will talk about. Here you have another view of this symbol, and as you can see, it seems like the caduceus of Hermes that we saw before, representing the kundalini and the pineal gland at the top, as that small ball. You can see it at the top of the staff. And what is at the top of this pillar? The pineal gland. Who is on the pineal gland? You have Satan himself, you have the phoenix, you've got Lucifer. So they want Lucifer at the seat of your soul. They want you to open your third eye for Lucifer, for the demons, for the solar angels to sit in the seat of your soul and control your minds and dominate you to this new world order. This is what they want, and they represent this in symbolism, because it needs to be analyzed. You need to check, because you can see these symbols all over the world in all religions. As Albert Pike said, all inspirations and all religions have one same divine inspiration, which for them is Lucifer. So this pillar basically is an obelisk, as this one you can see here, which is one of the so many that there are around the world. I think in every city of this world you can find an obelisk. So what does it mean for them? Well, Albert Pike wrote in Morals and Dogma, hence the significance of the phallus, or of its inoffensive substitute, the obelisk. They and the obelisks were erected to honor the sun. So there is a relation between the obelisk, sun worship, and sex worship, basically. It represents the phallus, it also represents the sun. So how is it that there are obelisks? There are obelisks in every city of this world, practically. Later, in future conferences, we will do maybe a conference specifically on the obelisk and its true origin, which will link from the origin also of certain symbolisms that come from before the flood. Here we can see once again an obelisk in front of a presidential palace, in this occasion the Capitol. You can see the Capitol there and the obelisk in Washington right in front of it. You can see inside of a circle. Why would this be? If the obelisk represents the phallus, what could this be then? What could it be representing? And also we see a vesica piscis. We will be talking about this more in future conferences as well, because it's a lot of information that we cannot put it all in one part. But anyway, you can see here how once again there is a relationship between the pineal gland, the opening of the third eye, with sexual relationships also. They are showing it here. So once again, as the biblical verse mentioned in Luke, be careful with what you do. Be careful with what you think is coming from the light, and it may be darkness. As we can see here in this symbol, we have the pineal gland in the center of our two hemispheres of the brain, right where the obelisk is, right where Satan wants to put his throne in our mind. Once again, we have another obelisk inside a circle in front of a presidential palace. And what does it have around it? 8 radius, just as the wheel we saw on the pillar in Kazakhstan. And again, sun worship, and again, inside of Escalating. So how is it that they have these things in front of a supposedly Christian religion, or its headquarters? Because they apparently live worshipping Christ. But it seems like they're worshipping something else. But as we saw, the Vatican, United States, and secret societies, we can see the Vatican, the capital, and also Freemasonry, all working together for this appearance of Satan as if he were the Christ. Let's take a look at this tourism page that I found here in Spain about visiting the Vatican. It says, history and origin of the obelisk in St. Peter's Squares. It says, the obelisk of St. Peter's Square at the Vatican comes from distant Egypt. Remember where the Eye of Horus and everything? And to be more accurate, in what is today the neighborhood of the Matarilla on the outskirts of the city of El Cairo, which in the 7th century BC corresponded to the great city of the sun, Heliopolis. So these obelisks here, it says, were object of worship of the temples dedicated to the sun. So how is it that the Vatican goes to Egypt, or at least Rome goes to Egypt, grabs this gigantic obelisk, brings it from Egypt to Rome and plants it in St. Peter's Square? And they profess at least that they are worshipping Christ and that they are Christians. What does the Bible say? He shall break the obelisks of Heliopolis, which is in the land of Egypt, and the temples of the gods of Egypt he shall burn with fire. So the Bible says that these obelisks must have been destroyed because of what they represent, because they are Satan worship, and the Vatican takes them to St. Peter's Square. Haven't they read this verse in the Bible? Have they just missed it out? What's happening here? Anyway, and you can all make your own conclusions. As you can see here, the Pope, when he goes out to the balcony to receive all those people, who is he taking them to? To Jesus Christ or to something else? They are worshipping something else. They are worshipping the obelisk, which is worshipping Satan himself. And here another proof, Vicarius Filii Dei, which is the title, the papal title. Well, if you take these letters and put them in Roman numbers, they all add up 112, Vicarius, 53, Filii, and Dei, 501, which sums a total of 666. Well, this number must ring a bell, right? You must have heard it. Surely you've heard it. The mark of the beast, without which you will not be able to buy or sell. We will talk about this also in other conferences. What is truly the mark of the beast and what is going to come, because it is round the corner. This is something very close to happen to us all. We will all be affected by this. So remember, the New World Order is going to be generated through spirituality, or basically spiritism, interreligious ecumenism, and environment. The Jesuit symbol. Once again, Pope Francis belongs to this order. It is inside a sun. And once again, you can see, you could say, Christian symbolism. You can see a cross and 3 nails that could represent the nails that were used to crucify Christ. But the thing is that this nail, or the word nail better said, is in Hebrew said vav. Vav is the letter 6. And the letter 6 also represents the word nail. So if we have 3 nails, we have 666. Once again, we have this satanic number, the number of the beast, on the emblem of the Jesuit order of which the actual Pope belongs to. I'm not saying that only this actual Pope is a Satan worshipper, because basically all the popes of history have been worshipping Satan and have been taking people to doctrines that are not biblical. It's not only this one, the Antichrist. Every pope in history has been the Antichrist. Well, the Jesuits founded the Illuminati order, as we saw in the $1 bill in 1776, by Adam Weishaupt, which was a Jesuit priest. Apparently people say that he left the Jesuit order and that he wasn't a Jesuit anymore, but we all know that he never stopped being a Jesuit. He worked from outside the order, but he was always inside the order. And he founded the Illuminati order with its symbol as an owl. Now, what does an owl have to do with this? Well, we mentioned earlier about a certain Mother Earth goddess, fertility, represented by, so many goddesses around the world. One of them, for example, could be the Virgin Mary, which they say is the Mother of God. They even call her the Queen of Heaven today. Well, there's a Queen of Heaven in the Bible, and she's represented precisely to a pagan goddess. So it's curious that people worship the Virgin Mary as if she was still alive, knowing that, as we said, that all these things that they want us to do precisely is to connect with people that have already died and that are superior, apparently in other realms of conscious or belonging to this spiritual hierarchy. But anyway, these are other things that we can leave for another day. Albert Pike, who belonged to the Illuminati order, he had a correspondence with Giuseppe Mazzini, which is a very well-known person in Italy. Apparently, they say that this letter, the three world wars, did not exist. That's why I said here the alleged letter of the three world wars. But we'll prove later that they did exist. This was written in 1871. Now, the First World War occurred in 1914. So if this letter was written in 1871, let's see what they wrote about the First World War and if it corresponds with what really happened. It reads, "The first of these would overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and transform the country into the fortress of atheistic communism needed as a controlled opposition and antithesis to Western society. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and the German empires will be used to provoke this war, as well as the struggle between Pan-Germanism and Pan-Slavism. A world exhausted after the war will not interfere in the process of building the new Russia and the establishment of communism, which will be used to destroy other governments and weaken religions." I don't know if you know your history, but this is precisely what happened in the First World War. How is it possible that they wrote this letter 50 years before? More than 50 years before. Was the First World War created by the Illuminati? Well, definitely was. And remember, the Illuminati was originated by the Jesuits. So when we talk about Freemasonry, secret societies, always remember that the dominance, the power behind the secret societies is always residing in the Vatican. So what did they say about the Second World War? Well, first, did this letter really exist? Well, we wrote to a Masonic order in Columbia, United States, if I remember correctly, asking about if this letter really existed, because some people say that they were in the British Museum exposed for some time and then they took it out, etc. Well, they denied this. They said that it was never put at the British Museum or a British library, but that a woman called Edith Starr Miller did say that she had in her possession the letter of Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini in her hands in the year 1931. And she died in 1933. So she had this letter in her possession. We could say that the First World War could be written, this letter could be written after the First World War, which was 1914, but the Second World War occurred afterwards. It happened later. So if she had this letter in her possession at this year, then let's see what the Second World War says. The Second World War, 1939. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So once again, this letter was written in 1871 and the Second World War was in 1939. How is this possible? They knew the First and the Second World War, how they were going to happen? Well, because they created them with an objective. And they say here it was to create an official state for Israel. That was the objective. Why? Why is so important Israel in this affair? Why is Israel so important in the second, and now we are living the Third World War? Well, basically because it's they say the belly button of the world, the center. It's the epicenter of all the conflicts in this world, Israel, as we will see just now. Now, the Third World War. This hasn't happened yet, apparently. Are we in it already? The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenteur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that the Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel and allies, of course, which would be NATO, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Can't we see that we are living these moments right now? And eventually it will be the manifestation of Lucifer himself. So we could have thought that it was science fiction what we were reading in the first conference and seeing through Lucis Trust and the United Nations, but after these images of how the religious leaders and world leaders are going to support this agenda to the end because they are working for this coming of Lucifer, and they have been working for this for centuries, if not millenniums. Is this still science fiction to you? This is Gaza. 7th of April 2024. Aren't we living in the Third World War right now? The confrontation between the Zionist political movement and the Muslim world? It's definitely a religious war, what they would call a holy war, although it doesn't have anything of holy. BBC News World. Hezbollah confirms the death of its leader Hassan Nasrallah in an attack by Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Nasrallah's death is a historic turning point in his conflict with Hezbollah. Iran launches about 180 ballistic missiles at Israel. This was the 1st of October 2024. US promises severe consequences after Iran attacks Israel. Tehran launches ballistic missile onslaught in significant escalation of conflict in Middle East. Once again, 1st of October. Trump says US very close to a global catastrophe after Iran missiles strike Israel. World War III. 1st of October. Israel-Iran war. Is it the beginning of World War III? India Today. 2nd of October. The Mail of the Gulf. Iran's leaders delivers Friday sermon at a mosque with a rifle in hand. Let's take a look at this. Addressing a crowd of thousands in Iran, he said in Arabic, "The resistance in the region will not surrender to these martyrdoms and will win. Every blow to the Zionist regime is a service to all humanity. he declared in the speech delivered partly in Arabic to reach out to the entire Islamic world. In this regard, he called for the unity of the entire Muslim world from Afghanistan to Yemen against the common enemy Israel. The policy of the Quran is that Muslim nations must be united, he said, while stressing that the enemy of Iran is the enemy of Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, Syria, and Yemen. We know that at this moment, Israel is also in war with Lebanon. They have just signed this peace treaty, apparently of 60 days, which has not worked at all because Israel is continuing bombing that area. And what has Russia said also about Ukraine? Because they have been given to the Ukrainian army long-range missiles from the United States and from Britain. So what has Russia said? That nuclear war is maybe on the board. It may be possible. He is going to open the range of nuclear conflict. So World War III, we are in it right now, and truly World War III began from the year 2001. If you want to know more about this topic, I recommend the conference that we have on our channel, The Great Deception, about Israel in the End Times. It's a prophecy of Daniel 11, the last verses 40 to 45. We'll mention it now. And about the king of the north, and about the east and the north, and about how these powers were going to be confronting each other at the end of the times. And all of this conflict in the Middle East is about the esplanade of the mosques. This is the center of the world. This is the place which they are fighting for. This hasn't to do with Gaza or the West Bank or any part of that area. Obviously, they are fighting to get this greater Israel, but this is the center of all of it because they want to do something right here where there are a couple of mosques. What these red cows from Texas have to do with war and peace in the Middle East? CBS News. Now, I could explain this widely for you, but I think it will be easier to understand it quickly what all this conflict is about, what these red cows, these red heifers have to do with it, with a video that we'll be seeing now from CBS News, which I think is explained quite well.
The conflict in Gaza now entering its 6th month. The Israeli operation to root out Hamas terrorists there has resulted in the deaths of 30,000 Palestinians and 242 Israeli soldiers. The war started after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, killing almost 1,200 people and taking nearly 230 hostage, some still in captivity. Despite the deadly outcome across the region, one trigger for the Hamas rampage has been widely overlooked. Chris Livesey has the story from Jerusalem.
The infamous October 7 massacre that sparked a war. But one confounding yet eye-opening motive has escaped the headlines. In a recent speech, a Hamas spokesman blamed the Jews for bringing red cows to the Holy Land. The cows he's talking about at a secure, undisclosed location are these, red heifers to be precise. Some Jews and Christians believe they're the key to rebuilding the historic Jewish temple in Jerusalem and to beckoning the Messiah. To understand, you have to go back nearly 2,000 years when the ancient Romans destroyed the last temple in the city. To rebuild it, these believers point to the Bible's book of Numbers. It commands the Israelites to sacrifice a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Only then can the temple rise again. Caring for them on an Israeli settlement in the West Bank is Yitzhak Mamo.
So we have here, after a long research, we find in Texas.
In Texas?
Yeah, Texas, United States of America.
Texas Red Angus, flying them 7,000 miles to Israel.
This is not a publicity stunt.
What do you mean?
Meaning, this is something you take very seriously.
Harry Potter is a good story. The Bible is not story. The Bible is a way of God to lead us.
A massive altar already awaits, where the heifers are to be burned.
According to some believers, the ceremony needs to be performed right here on the Mount of Olives, looking directly into where the temple once stood. But something else now stands in its place.
The Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, among the holiest sites in Islam. Today, only Muslims are allowed inside, but that's not stopping Jewish activists outside.
Once you got, you started here.
6 days a week, Melissa Jane Kronfeld leads groups from around the world who defiantly pray, as close as armed guards permit.
It's not about the destruction of Islamic holy sites. It is about preserving this place and being guardians over the house of God for all people.
So you're happy with it where it is?
No, it's going to go 100%, but I believe
It's gonna go.
It's 100%. Yeah, the whole thing is going to go. We have to build a temple.
When you say that Dome of the Rock has to go, MJ, it's hard for me to imagine something more incendiary.
Well, let me ask you something. The Middle East seems pretty destabilized right now, and the war, if I'm not mistaken, is already here.
To be clear, hers is a dream not shared by the Israeli government or by the vast majority of Israelis and Jews, but it's been enough to incite numerous Islamist groups. Hamas has dubbed its October 7 assault on Israel the Al-Aqsa Wave and has the Dome of the Rock on its emblem. But this is sacred ground to billions of Muslims globally, not just Hamas terrorists, stresses Imam Mustafa Abu Sway of Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Al-Aqsa Mosque belongs to all Muslims. So you'll find reaction from Indonesia to Toronto to New York. That's really given. Al-Aqsa Mosque belongs to all Muslims, and the Muslims today are 2 billion people.
Simply by performing these acts, are these Jewish activists kicking a hornet's nest?
They are.
A hornet's nest they're kicking all the way to Capitol Hill.
So good to see you here in the nation's capital.
Those sacred cows were showcased in Washington at a recent prayer gathering. Many evangelicals believe these red heifers will usher Christ's second coming.
And we need the Messiah to come, right? So for me, the red heifer, it's red for the blood of Jesus Christ.
Back in the West Bank, Mamo says the ceremony could take place any day.
But can you understand why Hamas could be outraged by something like this?
I cannot understand that even if they are right, why they have to slaughter and rape people to win their war.
Terrorists have been attacking us before we ever dreamed of these cows, he reflects. They don't need them as an excuse to kill. For CBS Saturday Morning, Chris Livesay, Jerusalem.
Well, as you've seen, the attack of the 7th of October of last year was called the flood, the Al-Aqsa flood, because they knew that there were red heifers in Jerusalem and that they wanted to sacrifice them to be able to build the third temple. Now, the Jewish Zionists have it very clear, and they are supported by Christian evangelicals, which are financing with a lot of money to be able to do this movement. The United States is financing also the Israeli army for this conflict. So there is a big amount of power that is being used to be able to build this third temple. And those mosques, especially the Dome of the Rock, this golden dome, is going to be destroyed one day. How? I do not know. If there will be an earthquake, if there will be a war, the matter is that it will be destroyed because they are not going to stop until they build that third temple. Why? Because they are waiting for their Messiah. And as we saw, the United Nations is waiting for their Messiah. The spiritualists are waiting for their Messiah. The Muslims are waiting for their Messiah. The Jews are waiting for their Messiah. The Christians are waiting for their Messiah. The whole world, religiously, are waiting for a Savior. And as soon as this world starts to go worse and worse, and the war will expand and expand, then the need for a Savior is going to grow stronger in the people and the population in humanity. Now, for those that do not know about the Holy Temple, let's take a look at this video that explains also the true motive of the building of this third temple.
Do you know anything about the Holy Temple and what it means?
Nope.
Never heard of it?
Nothing. I never really thought of it, I guess.
שיבנה בית המקדש? ברור, כולנו רוצים שבית המקדש ייבנה, לא?
That's a really loaded question, man. I mean, that's not like a simple question.
חד שאלה.
נכון.
תן לי חצי שעה, יומיים לחשוב על זה. מלחמת עולם שלישית, זה הדבר הראשון שקפץ לי לראש.
Would it change something, I don't know, to the Jews?
Of course. It's a big part of the Jewish religious identity, you know, having the temple, a place of worship.
Because it's a redemption of our culture.
It's who we are as a people. We're coming back to who we are.
Everything. This is a dream that we have.
We have to live the present and dream. If we don't have dreams, we don't have anything, right?
It doesn't mean much to me as I'm not a religious person.
I can't even answer that question. I can't even imagine it. I think everything would change.
I'm not really sure that we even know this, really. I mean, it should change our whole level of consciousness of how we live our lives to have God's presence so visible and so clear.
כולם יהיו פחות טרודים, יהיו יותר נינוחים, יהיו פחות עסוקים במה חושבים עליהם. כאילו שיבנה המקום, כולם יהיו על מקומם. נראה לי אנחנו בהפרה מוחלטת כזו, וכשיבנה המקום אז נחזור למקומנו.
קודם כל, שלום בין כל המדינות, אוקיי? אנחנו אומרים שהיהודים יהיו נס לגויים, זה לא מתוך התנסות, אלא כל הגויים יבינו שאלוקים הוא המלך, ויבואו והוא איתנו, אוקיי? זה הרעיון של נס לגויים, זה הגאולה, לאו דווקא בית המקדש.
Would it affect the nation or peace or something global?
You would hope, Hatikva, you're always hoping that, cooperation and working together and building something that'll last will bring peace to both nations.
I mean, I would hope so, but I don't know if it would. It would probably take some time before we can continue to establish ourselves as a nation that can be that Or Lagoyim, that light into the nations.
A lot happened this year, not just Meron, a lot of things that just doesn't make sense. And I think it's a wake-up call for all of us. And I think hopefully it's coming soon because I don't know how else to explain any of it. So.
Everyone will be equal and we're going to live happy, in peace.
The temple is going to be the greatest building in the world. It's going to be a place that will bring good to all nations. Read the Bible, it's written there. I mean, you don't have to ask me, come on.
Nobody's going to be jealous with each other. Nobody's going to be poor or stuff like that. The whole world is going to be very wise, very happy, very healthy.
Every religion is welcome. So that's why I think that way.
So you would come to the Holy Temple to pray with all the nations together?
Yes, all together, all religions.
It would be nice sometime in the future, maybe in messianic times, when everyone can pray together. We're all praying to the same God, just different words.
The words will be one, and the God's only one. All peoples come to the one. As written, it's my belief.
We all have the same God eventually. We all believe in the same God.
All the people in the world will understand that there is one God.
מקום שמאחד בין הדתות, האמת שזה יכול להביא לא יודעת, אולי זה הפתרון לכל המלחמות שקורות, כל המלחמות דת.
כן, בית המקדש היה פותר את
יכול להיות מקום מרכזי שמאחד בין כל הדתות. אם היה, לא יודעת, כן, נראה לי.
אין בתולדות האנושות מקום שכולם מגיעים אליו מתוך אידיליה רואים בו כמקום של שלום. אין, כל תולדות האנושות אין את זה. אז אתה בא פה עם איזשהו קונספט חדש. אם הקונספט הזה יכול לעבוד, אני הראשון קונה את הכרטיס VIP.
As you can see, one temple, one God for all religions, and a messianic era. That's what they're waiting for, and that's what they are working for. That's what for the war of Israel and Gaza and the Middle East is for. That esplanade of the mosques is the center of this earth at the moment, and I would say even the center of the universe. But anyway, let's take a look at this other video of how the Jews really take this seriously. They definitely take this very seriously. And you can say, no, these are a bunch of crazy people that are doing this movement. They don't have the power to be able to generate this kind of movement, to create a war, to build the third temple, and all of this. You don't think so? Here there's a news from Newsweek magazine that says, Holy War, Red Cows, Gaza and the End of the World. It's a very complete article that we're not going to read. I just want to highlight the last part, where it says, while we make every effort in our limited ability to kindle interest in building the temple, this is the Temple Institute and the Jewish government, the rebuilding of the temple is not a Temple Institute project. Such a monumental effort would need to be based on broad support from the people of Israel and members of the international community, he added. Definitely, they are receiving great support from the international community. That would be NATO, the United States, Europe, everyone. Everyone except Russia and China, obviously, and their allies from BRICS. Now you can see here Bush father at the Wailing Wall, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton also. What are they doing there? What are they waiting for? They're waiting for their Messiah. Obama also. Donald Trump. So many Christian people believing that he is going to solve the problems of the United States and bring Christianity. Well, there is a big trap behind these past elections that have occurred. It didn't matter really who was going to win, or Kamala or Trump, but definitely Trump is the Christian power that the Bible talks about. This second beast that looks like a lamb but speaks like a dragon. And Biden also in Jerusalem. So now you can see what these people are truly fighting for. The Israeli army is fighting for the third temple. They have the symbols on their uniforms, their tanks. They even create these little symbols for themselves to carry them to war, and they have them on their helmets. Now, did the Bible warn that this was going to happen? Despise not prophesyings. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 20. This was prophesied in the Bible that was going to happen 2,600 years ago in the book of Daniel. Precisely here at this prophecy. If you want to know deeper what this prophecy talks about, it explains basically the war between Russia, China, at the end of times, but the Vatican, United States, secret societies, and what has to do with the third temple, then I recommend going to that conference, which is Israel in the End Times. But here we'll just highlight this part, saying that at the time of the end, the king of the north will be the one that shall plant its tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Now, where is this glorious holy mountain? And who is this tidings out of the east and out of the north? Well, east from Jerusalem we have China, and north we have Russia. It says between the seas. Which seas? Here we have Jerusalem, we have the Dead Sea, and we have the Mediterranean Sea. Between the seas, the Temple Mount, the glorious holy mountain. So the king in the north, the Vatican, is going to plant its tabernacle, its palace, its headquarters on the Temple Mount. Where? On the third temple. That's why they have always wanted, since the Crusades, to have the domain over what they call the Holy Land, including Pope Francis today. That's what they are working for. At this place where at the moment there is the Dome of the Rock, they want to build this. They want to build this to receive their Messiah for 2030. They want to receive Satan himself appearing as if he were Christ for all religions, for this new world order and the new world religion. So that means that something has to happen at the Vatican, because Rome is quite established there. The Vatican is established at its headquarters. Remember, it's the only empire in this world, because it is an empire, that is both political and religious. It's the only one. It's the only country. Something has to happen in the Vatican, as something has to happen at the Dome of the Rock, so that the temple can be built, and so that the Vatican can move its headquarters from here to the third temple. And this is their objective. Now this conference, we are going to leave it here for the moment, and we'll continue on the last and third part, Because now we have talked about what is the dark side's plan, what is this false plan of light and love of Lucis Trust, the United Nations, secret societies, the Vatican, United States, this threefold union that is working for this false apparition, this false appearance of Satan coming as if he were Christ. And in the next conference we will see, what does the Bible truly say? What does it truly say about what happens after you die? About what is the true coming of the second coming of Christ? And when will the second coming of Christ be? If Satan, he is going to be appearing by the year 2030. So we will see you at the third part here on the channel of Great Deception. God bless.